and that's time. Next, we're going to go back to our panel. Paul, you have the next question, and Mary Mayhew, you will start.
Candidates, you know, in November, Mainers voted to expand Medicaid, called Maine Care, to about 70,000 Mainers. Governor LePage has been saying he cannot move forward without adequate funding from the legislative branch. On Monday, you know, a judge ruled that the administration must follow through and take the necessary steps to start the expansion process. Our question is, if you were governor right now, what would you do?
I would adamantly oppose it and repeal it. It is absolutely insane that we would put the needs of 25-year-old able-bodied adults in front of an 85-year-old frail grandmother, a 40-year-old with Down syndrome. We've been down this path before. We know exactly what happens. That's why we owed the hospital $750 million. It's why nursing homes today cannot pay their staff adequate wages to keep them. We have had taxes increased in order to pay for the previous Medicaid expansions. The judge was wrong. In what world do you add 70,000 to 100,000 individuals onto supposed free health care and believe that that's not going to add costs to our budget? It needs to be repealed immediately, and we need to put the priorities of our elderly and our disabled front of the line.
You would defy the court order?
Listen, that court order needs to be challenged right to the Supreme Court. You cannot implement a program adding 100,000 people onto Medicaid. Listen, every time we roll back Medicaid eligibility, Paul, there was a reduction in the budget. The notion that you can add 100,000 that cost $400 million and not have an appropriation to pay for it is absolutely insane.
Thank you. Sean.
I mean, well, Mary covered a lot right there. A lot of I do. You know, I did not support Medicaid expansion. I think we all would agree that $750 million in the hole. History does repeat itself, and I think it's something we should have paid closer attention to. Here's the real problem. When you have a referendum process, that I call it the legislative vigilantes, they could basically circumvent our legislature and convince and coerce the voters with a couple of lines that this is going to be a great deal. That's the root cause of why we're in the situation with many of these bills that are at the legislative level today. So to add on to what Mary said, we need to fix that referendum process, because that's why we're faced with unfunded, mandates. We have unvetted, unconstitutional things that are coming through in terms of, the marijuana is in conflict with federal law. We don't have a proper vetting process for these things. I did not support the Medicaid expansion, and like Mary, I would fight to repeal it, but in the meantime, you have to follow the court order.
Mr. Mooney.
Ken.
Well, unlike Sean, I'm actually going to answer the question, because in the legislature, you actually have to do the work. I mean, that's just the way the process works. We have a referendum process in the state of Maine. It's part of the state constitution. So referendum questions are here to stay, and we in the legislature have to deal with them. We did that in the Maine legislature, for example, when voters marijuana law. House Republicans stood strong with Governor Paul LePage, and we stopped that law twice, forcing the legislature to make significant changes to that referendum passed law, so that now, even though I don't support the law that's in place, it is a better law than it was before. In regards to filing a plan, I think that we have to follow the law. I think the governor needs to file the plan with the federal government. It's part of the law. I'm an attorney. We are a nation of laws, not of men. But I think the legislature needs to go in and look at this bill. They can substantially change it, just like they did the marijuana law. The legislature can do that, but it's going to take a leadership from a governor to actually get that done.
Garrett.
I would appeal the decision to the higher court. I'd ask for an injunction to stop the court order, and from there I would work every day to make sure that I elect Republicans in the legislature so that we can repeal the Medicaid expansion law. Mob rule is not a Republican democracy. Mob rule always ends up to the wolf deciding what the sheep eats for dinner. And I don't think that's something that we want in this state. In order to fix the Citizens Initiative process and to fix some of these problems that we're facing, we have to elect more Republicans to the legislature, because that's where the job gets done. So I would fight vigorously, as I have in the legislature, to stop expansion, and that would be my plan going forward.